I'll be speaking this afternoon under the premise of what our Chairman Emeritus, former Finance Secretary Dr. Estanislao, used to remind us. Governance is a shared responsibility. And to our foreign investors, locators here, I want to believe that you go to the Philippines because you want to grow your business here, but at the same time, you want to help our country. Yes, I am Mon Abrea. You can forget about the Philippine Tax Whiz. We created that 10 years ago when we're trying to get the attention of the government and the taxpayers that we need to do something right. We need to stop bribing. We need to stop corruption. And we have to start doing our share. I am 36 years old. We started the advocacy 10 years ago. More or less, more than almost one third of my life spent doing nationwide tax roadshows, speaking from one group to another. And under the previous administration, we were very thankful to Rebecca and Richard. They gave us a spotlight sharing our advocacy when it is not yet a priority of the previous administration. Now, I would not argue with the first two gentlemen. I am not an economist in the first place. I can say, in the presence of our Assistant Secretary, I am an honest taxpayer, and I want to believe I am a responsible citizen. So let me give you a flashback before train. One thing good about the administration is this: they embrace the reality that we have a very inefficient tax system, which should not be blamed solely whether to BIR, to us taxpayers, or to the tax practitioners. There are a lot of factors, one of which, evidently, we have the highest tax rate, whether personal, corporate, even VAT. This is pre-train. I will show you at least a little progress if only we will all be together in not just riding, but in really making sure the train works for all of us. If you look at the personal income tax, clearly the rate may not be the highest, but we were taxed at 32% for $500,000. And that is what? Less than $10,000. That was until December 31, 2017. Corporate income tax, we remain to be the highest. We're really competitive in terms of getting the highest rate. And this is now being addressed by the comprehensive tax reform. So I won't preempt the presentation of ASEC Tere, but I would like you to realize that we are moving, maybe slowly from your perspective, but coming from somebody who's a voice in the wilderness for the last 10 years, this is a perfect opportunity for us to really work with our government. Governance is a shared responsibility. That's what we learned from our former Finance Secretary, Jess Estanislao. It means we cannot just demand from the government and not do our share, or just sit back and relax and let the government drive us crazy. We need to work together to make sure we get the result that we want. The latest ease of doing business may not be positive for all of us, but there's room for improvement. And I guess that's what we see now. Again, we may not agree on a lot of things, but I think we will agree on, if we will work together, we'll be able to work things out. We are happy that BIR will be issuing in 2 months' time, or in less than 60 days, the regulation that will finally recognize third-party software provider. That means we can all use accounting and tax software, that we don't need to go through a lot of processes, that everything will be online. Again, I don't want to preempt the regulation that will be issued by the commissioner, but that's something that we've been working out with them, with a lot of advocates and experts. So you've heard about our mobile app. It's still for free. You can file and pay taxes now using your mobile app. You don't need an accountant. You don't need a consultant. You just take a photo of your receipt and boom, you have a tax return. And all these things are now possible because we have a government that listens. So if you have insights, like the two gentlemen who presented today, let the government hear us, what we want to say. But let's make sure they feel as well that we are behind them, that we are supporting them. Otherwise, it's so tiring to do a reform. Because honestly, there is no reform without pain, without sacrifice. And I think the media has made it very clear to all of us that after Train 1, there were several complaints. But that's not the end of it. We are still in the process of making sure there will be a genuine reform. High compliance costs. We know that. We feel that. That is why technology is our solution. That is why collaboration is key. We don't want BIR to be running after us every now and then. You know, I was very happy that I was sharing with Asek Tere that I was teasing already Congressman Kua. Sabi ko, oh, now people are blaming us for inflation. What do you do? Well, I don't say much. Then I say, well, in social media, I say a lot. Because if we really want to help our country, then we should help our government collect the right taxes. Lowering taxes is very risky. And we need to make sure, like the two gentlemen mentioning about lowering rates will result to increase in collection, in voluntary compliance. I hope so. Because there is also a behavioral aspect on that. And I hope we really see ourselves as the one contributing rather than just complaining when it comes to reform. Sad to say, we have more than 106 million in population. But did you know that up to this point, only 17 million are registered taxpayers? You know, sometimes I wonder, how come that we try to demand so much from the government but most of us are not even contributing? You can say that you pay VAT for every consumption that you make. But you know, sometimes we are also guilty in dealing with corporations, individuals who are not registered, who are not issuing receipts. 10 years ago, all we were asking is for people to ask for official receipts so that we can start demanding for those who are making profit in this country to pay their share or their taxes. To us, a genuine tax reform is as simple as everyone gives their share. It's as simple as even a grade 1 student can understand. You know, during the time of Marcos, South Korea was benchmarking in the Philippines. Right now, there is a tax museum in South Korea that they are educating even the little ones on the importance of taxes. In the Philippines, when we talk about taxes, we feel so burdened. We have tons of complaints. And if we can hide it, save from it, we will. I hope the reform is not just about unburdening ourselves, but really helping the poorest of the poor, which I think is ultimately the purpose of taxes. Wealth distribution, uplifting the lives of our people. You may disagree with me on that because of inflation, but believe me, from a non-economist point of view, we will get through that. If only we will let the reform help us, and if only we will do our share. So this is the worst news we got when we started studying BIR's collection. That before train, 82% of our collection from individual income tax are actually coming from our employees. Imagine that. That multiply it by 2, that is the contribution of corporations. For the last 20 years, our employees are the most burdened by our outdated income tax system. And we were crying out loud to our previous administration to cut our personal income tax. In fact, we were proposing to have 500,000 exemption because you want us to be rich to get out of poverty, but you're collecting 5% as low as 10,000 pesos. Later on, I will show to you a transition from the old and the new so that you will feel what I feel. That my mom retired as an employee paying that 32%, and she doesn't even know, or until now probably, can't even see where her taxes actually went. So it's an issue of really making sure we trust our government and that government will trust us back. But more importantly, we have to acknowledge the fact that Train 1 resolved or ended an injustice. And that is that high personal income tax that more or less kept our poor Filipino families poor. And most of them left the country for the same pay. But if they go elsewhere, either zero tax or less tax. So they'd rather risk being away from their family just to get or earn 30,000 pesos equivalent of their pay. Because it's tax-free in the Middle East, in Brunei, while here it will be taxed heavily. But there's still more challenges. We may have lowered the personal income tax, but we have to gradually shift. And ladies and gentlemen, you may not like this, but this is part of the reform. We have to gradually shift from income tax-based collection to a consumption tax-based collection. And that is where VAT excise will come in. We have to make sure that the strongest of us, the richest of us will be contributing more. If you don't like, then let's change position. I'll be the strongest and I'll give more. Because I think that's what fair tax system is all about. We will still complain about the high compliance costs because we are still in the process of simplifying things. Really, technology is the key. You can put the best man, well, we have a good person now as Commissioner, Billy Dulay, but he cannot do magic. We need to make sure we use technology to simplify things, to lessen the face-to-face encounter with our regulators or BIR examiners, so that it will really be simple and easy for all of us. We need to address the narrow taxpayer base. Because ultimately, whether we increase or decrease our taxes, if only less than 10% of us will be paying, then there's no way we will be progressing. So we need to broaden our taxpayer base. And our government needs our help. We need to make sure we deal only with registered taxpayers, with paying taxpayers. Because every time that we get a supplier and we allow them not to issue a receipt to us, every time that we deal with an individual, a consultant, a lawyer who is not registered and who will not issue a receipt to us, we are making the problem even bigger. In fact, if you will ask me, my mom hated me for this. We need to start removing the VAT exemption so that we can lower the VAT rate from 12, which is the highest in our among our ASEAN countries, to 10 or even lower. But not until that time that we will be able to streamline things and make sure that we collect the right taxes, especially on VAT. I remember that I was interviewed by ANC and Commissioner Billy. We had an argument because he said, "Why do you keep on highlighting the inefficiencies in the tax system when we are already doing something?" Then I told him, it's because I want to make sure that I send the message across. We can criticize, but at the same time, we need to make sure we are also giving our commitment that we will be part of the solution. Smuggling will not be addressed by customs alone. As long as we all get excited whenever there are too low-cost items available around for us, it means we are supporting the smuggled goods. We have to make sure that even if we pay a little more, we are only supporting those who are honest, those who are responsible or paying taxes in our country. So in the last 10 years, we've been working to make sure that we promote tax education and reform. So let me share you with this one. Oops. So at the start of the Duterte administration, we hosted actually the first Philippine Tax Congress, where we convened our legislators, DOF, BIR, BOC, with the rest of the business organizations in the country. I'm not sure if ASEC Tere was there, but we invited DOF, and I think 20 of them came. And if you will notice, there were signing a commitment. This is actually a pledge to actually support or promote integrity and honesty when it comes to paying taxes. Then for the last 8 years, we've been going around the country. We are not asking for payments. We're not charging the government. We're promoting tax education and reform. We've published probably more than 5 titles. We've raised more than 2 million to fund our advocacy because it's really self-sufficient.
So what's your position on package 2?
I am very much okay with the lowering of corporate income tax. For obvious reason, we have the highest corporate income tax. And even if we lower it at 25, we will still not be at par. Why? Because other ASEAN, other neighboring countries are already thinking of lowering it down to 15,
That's right.
20 to 15.
Yeah.
So we really have to move fast.
I hope to sign package 2 before the year ends. I urge Congress to pass it in form that satisfy our goals and serve the interest of the many, not just the wealthy few.
I guess the message is, one, we have to keep an open mind and to have a big heart for the common good. I know it's not easy to hear that the government plans to increase your taxes, but I think the better news there is they're open to ideas. In fact, yesterday with Congressman Kua, we were talking about amnesty for more than an hour. And he was like telling, whatever ideas you have, help us. We are open to discussion, but please, our end goal should not just be giving you free from problems with BIR, but really helping us collect the right taxes and starting fresh. So I guess that's what we have to consistently remind ourselves. And when Dr. Estanislao commissioned me to go to BIR to study corruption, it's a crazy mission, and I don't even know why I took it. I was with BIR from 2009 to 2010 just to study corruption in BIR. And when I finished my master's at the Ateneo Graduate School, my panel were very surprised because I think I'm the only one who used BIR as a case study. And not to mention, I was an examiner at that time. So if you know what I mean, I took really the bullet just to make sure I would understand what's happening in BIR. So this was the blueprint we presented. And this blueprint was recognized by this administration. And we were happy that a genuine reform is not about lowering taxes. Genuine reform is about the three strategic areas that we need to address. One, we have an outdated and old tax system. We need to overhaul it. And it's not easy, whether it's package 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why? Because this is the first time that we are literally going through every detail of the taxes that we have in our tax code. Whether it should be increased or decreased, we have to be very cautious, to be very consensus in making that decision. And I think our voices are all important at this point. So rather than just criticizing and feeling bad, which, I can relate to that. For the last 10 years, I felt that. So if you spoke to me 10 years ago, I would have probably stand at the center or already in the crowd and asking you to really do something about this. It's unfair, corruption is bad, taxes are too high. But right now, my perspective, my disposition is there's hope that the window has opened or probably the door has opened. And it's up to us now to take advantage of it. The second part of reform is administrative. I mentioned to Congressman Kua na now that GMA is the House Speaker, is her bill, will there be progress in her bill? That she filed a bill to abolish BIR. And not to abolish BIR period, but to do like what they did with Central Bank. They abolished Central Bank and they reinstituted, and now we have Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So it's literally overhauling it. Because number one, every examiner is receiving less than 20,000 pesos. And because of salary standardization, it will be very difficult for BIR or even the commissioner to do something unless they will all be promoted directors. So imagine that. Of the less than 10,000 manpower of BIR, only 3,000 are examiners. Of the examiners, 80% are rank 1 or 2, meaning revenue officer 1 or 2. And the pay is around that figure. So if you really want them to be on board as well, probably some of them we need to retire, I don't know. But like, for instance, I was asked several times, would you go back to BIR? Well, if you do all what I'm proposing and I'll be getting at least 100,000 a month, probably. But not 20,000. No way I'll be collecting billions of pesos for the government and get less than 20,000 pesos a month. I cannot be honest to all of you if I get that. So more or less, that's part of the challenges that we are facing. And here we are. That's the reason why probably some of you were wondering, I thought he's a critic of BIR and the tax administration. Why all of a sudden you are blindly supporting this with all its flaws? No, I'm not blindly supporting it. I am pretty sure you know what I mean. I know exactly all the flaws and inefficiencies in our tax system. But I'm looking at the bright side. There's hope, and the government is listening. And surprisingly, they're listening to me despite the fact that for the longest time, I am criticizing BIR and our tax system. There's an opportunity for us to work together. Train 1 has been passed. There is 1B, which is the amnesty. 2, which has partially been discussed, and Secretary will be discussing that extensively with the rest of the packages. I was asking her if it's true that DOF will be pushing for 1B and 2 this year. And she said, why not all if it's possible? And I felt like, if it's really possible with our help, why not do it? Imagine we are all burdened with the inefficiencies in the system, and all we need is a solution. if these packages will be the solution, then might as well contribute our ideas or our commitment to make sure it will work for us. So, if you are still unaware of what I am saying, Package 1 has 4 parts. Well, this is our way of looking at Package 1. Have you read the 106-page Train 1? Because I felt like everyone is complaining or against Train 1. But have you read the 106-page law? I did, including all the versions. And to me, more or less, this is the 4 parts. First is the most important reform presented by Package 1. That is lowering our personal income tax. Then we have the offsetting measures. Then we have the administrative measure and the social mitigating measures. So if you look at it, this is where we are before. If you make 10,000 pesos, you are taxed at 5%. That is until 2017. If you make 250,000, you will be taxed at 25%. That is until 2017. If you make 500,000, you will be taxed as much as Chris Aquino and Manny Pacquiao at 32%. Under the train law, your first 250,000, before taxed at 25%, will now be exempted. If you still don't see that as a benefit, probably you were not feeling the taxes that you were paying. Because for ordinary employees, this is what one time, big time, ang galing. Now, I won't talk about inflation because I'm not an economist. But what I am saying is, it ended the injustice that most of our honest taxpayers, I call employees, were burdened for the last 20 years. Undeniably. Tama po ba? Do you recognize that? Do you recognize that Train 1 literally updated or corrected the outdated and burdensome personal income tax? Because if you don't, I think there's dishonesty there. You can criticize, but you have to admit when there's something being done already. And that is what Train 1 did. And as I've told you, it should be a gradual shift from income tax to consumption tax. So we should not be complaining if there will be excise or VAT, because that should be the way of the reform. And you're talking about other countries, look at how their income and consumption tax relates. That's how it is. Mababa ang income tax, mas mataas ang consumption, and they do well in collecting consumption because it's easier. Mas madali pong i-track ang consumption tax. So, if you want to know more about Train 1, I invite you to get a copy of our Train Handbook. 100% of the proceeds will go to CSR Philippines, the advocacy partner of BIR and DTI in promoting tax education and reform. So, this is like the part where I feel embarrassed that I have to promote the book, but this is what exactly funded our advocacy for the last 10 years. So it's actually a Q&A. It's not like reading a book. So if you have questions on the impact of the train law on compensation, on estate, on donors, you can just go to the table of contents and you'll get the basic Q&A just for you to have an overview of what the train law is about. So the message of the President is very clear. In fact, after the SONA, I felt really good because I think it's really where we are heading to finally push for a genuine tax reform. But again, the genuine tax reform is not just about lowering taxes. So let's hear the message of the Commissioner, because we're really working with Commissioner in making sure that we will all feel that the administration is honest in really reaching out to us.
The Bureau of Internal Revenue is mandated to collect taxes. We need the full support of our citizens in paying their taxes correctly and on time. We need the full cooperation of our tax-paying public. There is, however, the perception that the Bureau of Internal Revenue is one of the most corrupt agencies in the country. But I would say that this is not absolutely wrong. In fact, the perception has some basis. We have some bad eggs in the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Ang sabi nga po nila, walang corrupt kung walang nangungurap. That's why we need also to appeal to our taxpayers to pay the right taxes to the government and not pay them to the pockets of this corrupt personnel in the Bureau of Internal Revenue. We need to cooperate with each other to address and to stop this culture of corruption, but instead work together to create a new culture of integrity and honesty in our country. That is why we are thankful to the efforts being done by CSR Philippines in cooperation with the BIR to promote a culture of integrity and honesty. Let us respond to the call of the President na dapat may tunay na pagbabago not only in BIR but in the country, all for the benefit of our own country. Tunay na pagbabago para sa bayan. Salamat po.
So I guess the message there is that we really have to do our share. Governance is a shared responsibility, and please do get in touch with us if you want to know more about our tax education and reform program. Maraming salamat po.